Welcome to the Market Me podcast with your host, Mike Moll. Each episode of Market Me deconstructs real campaigns for actual businesses to improve their marketing efforts. Mike is the founder of Social Media House and a digital marketing consultant who teaches marketing strategy to executives and their teams from small business to Fortune 500 companies. Let's get started.
All right, on this episode, we are talking with Bill Bice from Boomtime. Thanks so much for coming on.
Great to be here with you.
Yeah, so tell us about your company.
This came out of my experience with, I've really had a fun career. I've started a bunch of companies. I started a software company when I was 18, and although that took me a really long time to build that company, it was successful. And because of that, I've gotten to start and invest in a lot of companies. But I got really frustrated with how difficult it is to get great marketing for my own companies. And when you're the owner or CEO of a company, you want a return on your investment. And I tried every approach of hiring high-end agencies, building internal teams, having a CMO and outsourcing everything. And so I really created Boomtime to go after that problem. And because I'm a programmer, I just sort of naturally tackled it from the data. And that's kind of the beautiful thing about marketing now is it's really all about the data. And we can learn everything about every piece of engagement we're creating. And if you actually put that data to work, it's amazing what a great job you can do.
Absolutely. So run me through how that kind of all works. I know, there's a number of companies that are doing some form of automation within marketing, but maybe you can run me through kind of the use case.
Yeah, so I think the challenge is that a lot of what's available is sort of one side or the other, either the technology or the expertise. And for a lot of small businesses, there's a ton of great marketing automation technology out there, but if you don't have the expertise and the resources to implement it and know what to do with it, then that's really challenging. So what we've done differently is put those two things together and created marketing as a service. And really the only way that you can do marketing with scale and efficiency, which I think is really the big thing that's been missing in marketing, is by putting automation in it. And the biggest problem most businesses have is they just don't execute on their marketing consistently because it's tough to get it done internally. And so the solution to that was to put both sides together and have both the technology and the service so that we get scale out of it. And it really goes after that. I've always joked that marketing is this one area that, unlike any other part of our business, in no other area do we accept the lack of scale and efficiency that happens in marketing. So this is just a problem that has to be solved.
Yeah, absolutely. And so tell me a little bit about your kind of the past of it, how you came to develop it. Obviously being in the programming space, you think up all of these ideas, but how did you kind of conceptualize it into a product that's kind of moving today?
Well, it really happened over a 6-year time period because it was just a matter of tackling sort of each roadblock that we came across that really stopped us from doing this well. So absolutely the analytics are a key part of that. One of the challenges that a smaller business has, if you're a Fortune 500 company, you can afford to put in the Adobe Marketing Suite and get more data than you know what the heck to do with. But for a smaller business, it's really difficult to get all the pieces in a unified view so we can really understand what the customer journey is across all the channels. And you can do it. You can go into Google Analytics and look up your stats in LinkedIn and follow the stuff that's going in an email, but there's so much value that comes from integrating those together and really understanding what's happening. So we built a platform in order to accomplish that. And then you start getting into just the sort of core problems that every business has. Like nobody's really good at using a CRM system. And yet if we don't build a central database of every client, prospective client, everyone in your network, it's really tough to do a good job of marketing.
Yeah.
So we created a tool called Mailbox Mining that sits there and monitors the email of everybody who's client facing, because particularly in B2B, you're talking to everybody via email. So there is a database sitting out there. It's just that it's not being captured and turned into, the central marketing database that we need to have. And honestly, the biggest problem is the content, because if you don't have great content, then all of the analytics, all of the, the best tactics in the world just aren't going to matter. And so we had to figure out, how do we get a really great flow of content just, consistently, week in and week out. And it's really the copywriter problem, right? So you can have somebody who's really good at writing copy, but, last week they were working on a car dealership, and this week they're going to figure out your, niche vertical SaaS product. Mm-hmm. It's just not realistic. So our approach was to build a network of subject matter experts who know the audience that you're talking to, already understand what their needs are, and therefore can take the ideas. So, 30-minute brainstorming session, we can figure out 6 months worth of editorial. Yeah. And then we just need a subject matter expert to write it. And then we flow that through the system and follow the data and just constantly get better and iterate. Because whatever works, that's what we want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's, we speak with businesses all the time who ask, how do we, create blogs? How do we create social media? How do we do this and that? And, the answer is never simple. It depends on how much you need. My biggest concern with people is always, once you have it, what are you going to do with it? Right? How many people are going to throw it up on their website and then just go let it die, be seen by 17 people, and then gone forever, right? What are your thoughts or your kind of opinions about people diving into like the video space or audio, like the podcasting side? Are you guys moving in that direction? Are you moving people in that direction?
We try. It's frankly, it's difficult. We find the best route is we get that core flow of content as a foundation. And then if we can get the CEO of the company to do just a 90-second video talking about what the more in-depth written version is, that's sort of the ideal way to get the point across in multiple mediums. But it's a tough, thing to get business owners to do. It works great when you do it. Mm-hmm. And it seems totally natural for you do a podcast, you're really good at it. But for a business owner who just doesn't have that experience, it's a hard line to get across, but just do it. There's no miracle solution to that problem. You don't need really high production values. In fact, that doesn't work. So being more genuine and, just sitting at your desk with your iPhone and communicating something that's really valuable to your audience, that works really well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so are there specific verticals, or are there specific types of businesses that you work best with, or is it just strictly B2B as a blanket?
Well, what we have found is that for what we really focused in on is high value B2B. So that covers a pretty wide range, but what it really boils down to is it's a direct sales effort. It's a fairly high ticket item. Some of that's just the advantage that because each prospect is so valuable, companies tend to really pay attention to the results that their marketing is creating. So part of it's just that advantage, but this sort of content oriented approach it works really well in these kinds of high value areas where developing thought leadership and really creating sales opportunities that wouldn't otherwise exist. So a core part of what we do comes out of the challenger sale, which is really just taking a consultating approach to sales. And if you go out and really share the best advice you have, I mean, whatever you consider most valuable, if you'll give that away for free, that's the best marketing you can do.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely love that. And do you, so when we're talking about the distribution of that content, obviously, organically on LinkedIn and to an email list is great. Do you guys play in the ad space at all? Leveraging LinkedIn advertising or Facebook advertising to help accelerate some of the content, or even to retarget? Do you guys focus on that, or is it more of an organic and outreach approach?
Well, we certainly put more focus on organic, but that's really because my belief is that you shouldn't spend $1 on ads until you've got the marketing foundation in place so that you have a realistic shot of getting a return on that advertising dollar.
Yeah.
And so by focusing on it again, at first, we're going to figure out what the message is. We're going to figure out what's really driving engagement. We're going to have a foundation in place so that every time we generate a prospect, we're actually going to capture them. We're automatically going to follow up with them with a nurturing campaign. Where they're going to take that audience that we're building and stay top of mind with them consistently over time. And for a small business, unless you have all those pieces in place, I think it's almost impossible to get a return on advertising. Yeah. So first we build that foundation, make that work. That's getting us all the low hanging fruit. Then we can start spending some money on advertising because we're much more likely to make it work in that case.
Yeah. And then do you offer that as like full service end to end? Your team can handle those pieces as well?
We do. It's probably 20% of our clients that get to the point where they want to spend money on ads because the other 80% gets what they're looking for just in being better at capturing the referrals and leads they're already generating. A big part of what we're doing, I love the fact that we're all digitally connected now because it allows us to do this really wonderful thing, which is take the core part of marketing that really works, which is word of mouth, and amplify that effect. And so we call that social currency. And if we give your audience social currency to give them a reason to talk about you, then it creates new referrals that wouldn't have otherwise happened.
Yeah.
And that's so much more cost effective to do. Now, if you're very early or if you're in a really aggressive growth stage, then we need to put some dollars into that in order to make that engine work even faster.
Got it. And how would you go about, on the topic of kind of giving up the best advice that you have? I know you and I were talking just before the recording. We're really on the same wavelength with it, and I love. I was just reading through the website. I was like, man, this is exactly what I tell people. I love it. What would be your best advice for someone who's too early to engage with a project or product like you guys or a service like you guys, who's saying, okay, I get what you're saying, but how do I start? What would be your best advice to somebody that was trying to start?
So the best place to start is on LinkedIn. Right? So LinkedIn is the ideal networking event because I get to meet only the people I want to, exactly the right target audience. And then I get to talk to them forever. And so if you're starting out or you're smaller, then what you need to do is take the idea of the golden hour of prospecting and just apply it to LinkedIn. Right, so this is the sales concept of I'm going to take a certain hour, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. every single day. I'm not going to take any calls. I'm not going to answer any email. I'm going to do this one thing. And instead of making cold calls, which nobody really enjoys doing, spend that time. You've got to sign up for Sales Navigator, develop really in-depth queries that get you to exactly the right prospects, the people you want to be connected with. And then do exactly what we do. Send 40 to 50 connection requests every single morning, day in and day out. Write each one of those messages as if you're talking to one person, because that's what you're doing. I mean, the biggest mistake I see over and over again on LinkedIn when somebody starts running a campaign like this is they start thinking about, well, I'm going to send this to the 500 people that are my ideal prospects. And then they start writing as if they're talking to 500 people.
Right.
You're talking to each one of them individually. The biggest factors on whether somebody accepts your connection request is your headline and how many people you have in common. So what you want to do is surround your best prospects with other connections before you really get to the ideal audience that you want to talk to. And then every time you get an accepted connection, follow that message up. And what we typically send is what I call the reframing article. This is a concept that comes out of the Challenger sale. And it's a completely non-salesy, just insight and perspective driven, something unique that you can bring to your market because of the understanding you have of the market. Or you might be talking to the CEO of X company, but because you work with or have experience with hundreds of companies like them, you have perspective that they just can't have because they're running their one company. You need to find that perspective and use that to share with them. That's what creates conversations. And so this is all about building relationships. It's just like walking into that networking event. If you meet somebody new and you immediately pull out your PowerPoint and dive into a sales pitch, it doesn't tend to work very well. We got to build a relationship first. Sales opportunities will come out of that, but we gotta work our way there.
Got it.
So I just love LinkedIn because it's the best way to build the audience of who you want to get to, and then you get to talk to them forever after that.
Got it. And so do you recommend, so after the request goes out, that person accepts it, do you recommend a message that then says, hey, I've written this piece, thought you might find it interesting, here you go? Is that kind of the idea?
Exactly. And it's the same thing as always following the data of seeing what really works. So what we're monitoring is how many responses are we getting to sending that message. We found that sending it 24 hours after they accept the connection request is the best time to send it, because a lot of people check LinkedIn the same time every day. Right. So you have a good chance of catching them when they're online. And the best thing to do is try 3 or 4 different headlines, a couple of different articles, see what really generates the most response. And if you have a well-optimized profile and a honest and sincere connection message, you should be getting low 40s to low 50% acceptance rate on your connection requests. And between that initial message and the follow-up, you should be getting between 6 and 10% of people starting a conversation with you. And so for most businesses, if you're willing to follow up on that and look at their profile and find a reason to talk to them, that's more leads than you can handle.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have kind of a framework in terms of what you recommend for that first message, or is that more so for kind of the paid part of the program?
It's don't be salesy. Be building a network because you actually want to bring value to that network. So be open with why you're connecting with them and why it makes sense. So if you have that, so the biggest mistake is people just don't do a message at all. They just send connection requests. So that's the biggest thing that's going to increase your acceptance rate. And then just changing your headline so that instead of being your title at some company, that you put in what you're passionate about, what you care about, that'll dramatically increase the percentage of connections that are accepted.
Right.
So it's not a hard formula. It's just being genuine and we're all kind of tired of the outreach on LinkedIn that is a sales pitch right off the bat. That just doesn't work. Yeah.
Yeah, I find even the occasional time you get the in-mail stuff, like I'm just like, why would you even bother sending this? There's no chance I'm reading any of it. Although I did get an amazing cold email last week, and it was a guy who wrote saying, hey, Mike, checked out Social Media House, and you usually see them and you're expecting them to be, as broad and as generic as possible. And he goes, I really loved your climbing pictures on Instagram. And I'm like, holy crap. You took the time to find my Instagram? I was like super impressed. I actually hired him to write a sales page. I haven't seen it.
And outreach that works.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing. I mean, obviously, it sounds like the way that you're marketing your business is probably the same way you recommend everybody else's. But how are you guys thinking about growth? What's been your best growth channel? And
yeah, it really has literally been doing exactly the same thing for ourselves that we do for our clients. And we had the classic cobbler's kid shoes problem until we changed our internal structure and process so that we just treated ourselves exactly like a client and gave one of our marketing strategists credit as, just like we are a client. And it's amazing what a difference that made in terms of our own growth, because we had the same exact problem of not executing consistently on our marketing. Yeah. And, the only way you're going to get consistent growth is to break out of the traditional cycle of, well, things are a little slow, and so now I'm going to focus on marketing, and then things pick back up, and then it has to be consistent. It's really one of the biggest mistakes in marketing is the lack.
Got it. And have you thought about any content that's like almost teaching what you guys are doing, but almost like as a modular piece? So hey, do you want I've been playing around with the idea lately of like mini courses like 45-minute mini courses on like how to do something, some process, some step that like kind of gets everybody in the door, gets them in the email list, that kind of thing?
I think that's a great idea, and I think your approach of really teaching people how to do it is wonderful for anyone who's willing to actually take it on and do it. That is just awesome. And we really take our own advice, which is we give away what we have learned in doing this. I'm very passionate about small business. It's where our employment comes from. It's where our innovation comes from. And yet marketing's gotten to a point where the gap between what your really large competitors can do and what small businesses are doing it's gotten kind of ridiculous. So if we don't close that gap and we don't get the marketing of our small businesses to be more sophisticated, I think we have a really huge problem. So I have no problem with giving away as our advice, giving away for free the things we have learned, because it really is the day-to-day execution that is so hard to do. So, I followed in your footsteps and started a podcast just talking about the things we have learned in doing this for hundreds of companies. And it's just, obviously I love talking about marketing. So it's just,
one other thing that we're playing with the idea of, and I think it would actually be a really great fit for you as well, is creating a Facebook group. I saw that Facebook put a however many, it's $5 million now or whatever it is for the Super Bowl. They did an entire commercial for groups, and I was a little bit blown away. But I've seen, people exponentially growing groups, and it's a great way for you to, deliver some content. It's an easier path to people giving you an email, but it might be an interesting place to play. The way I'm thinking about using it is like once a week going live and doing Q&A, and then once a week offering like an audit on sales copy or to do with a web page or reviewing an email marketing campaign, and doing it as like a video training that gets back into the group. So it's like you're serving the group and you're sharing knowledge in the group, and you're showcasing your skills in the group. So we're playing with that idea right now. It might be a cool thing to play with as well.
I think that's a great idea. Please invite me when you get it going. I want to see it happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're a couple weeks out. Cool. What else? Do you have any other thoughts, any other advice? I mean, I think, our collective knowledge on content and B2B, I love what you said about the how to get started thing. Do you have any other kind of resources? Do you guys have a resource online that people can reference to kind of get started, or some checklists or some activities or things that they can go after?
If you come to our website at boomtime.com, we're doing exactly what we recommend that you do, which is the number one thing you want from a prospective client is their email address. And what we give in exchange for your email address is our B2B marketing playbook, where we lay out, this is the guide for the things that the approach that we have found that really works for any high value B2B business. And we just lay out exactly what we want, what we do. And I'm all for every business that wants to go do that for themselves. And it's a great way to see in detail what we're doing for our clients.
Yeah. And I love the idea with it. I think one thing that it does that people often neglect when they're afraid of giving away all their information is, really give someone a perspective about how much work and how difficult it is to do what we do. And I find that understanding that makes a better customer, makes a customer that's happier to pay more money, because it's like, I can't do this myself. So really smart.
Yeah, it's really a great filtering mechanism, right? Because it attracts the right clients. And one of the interesting problems in marketing is you don't want to spend effort on the clients that really aren't a good fit for you. So it's always difficult to do. What I always talk about is you're not niche enough, you're not focused enough if it isn't making you uncomfortable. If you're not feeling the pain of, I've got to be giving up business somewhere because I'm really focusing on the thing I'm great at. But yet when you do that, when you really focus in on what you're great at, it attracts exactly the right clients, and it makes the value that you provide so much higher.
Yeah, love that. Man, well, really great. Thanks so much for coming on. And other than the website, boomtime.com, where else can people find you?
So you can reach out to me at ceo@boomtime.com. I love talking about marketing. You can, of course, find me on LinkedIn and see me demonstrating what we're talking about.
Awesome. Well, Bill, really appreciate it. It was great to meet you, and have a good one.
Thanks.